What if everything you've been told about life and death is only half the story? Imagine a world where your soul doesn't just get one shot, one fleeting chance at eternity, but instead embarks on a grand cosmic journey through countless lives. Sounds wild, right? Now, brace yourself. This idea might have been part of early Christianity. Before the church locked its doctrines in stone, some believers whispered about reincarnation, the soul's return again and again, to learn, to grow, to purify. Ancient civilizations like Egypt, India, and Greece didn't blink at the concept. Philosophers like Plato saw it as truth. Even a revered Christian thinker, Origen of Alexandria, preached it, until the powers that be snuffed it out. In 553 AD, a council stamped it forbidden, erasing it from the Bible's pages. But why? Was it really heresy, or a threat to control? Hidden in Scripture, hints still linger. Jesus himself might have dropped clues. Today, science is digging up echoes of past lives, stirring the pot again. What if the soul's story is bigger than we've been allowed to believe? Stick around, because this tale's about to unravel, and it might just change how you see everything. Have you ever stopped to think about what happens after we die? Most of us grew up with a simple story. One life, one chance, then judgment, heaven or hell, end of the line. But what if that wasn't always the tale Christians told? What if, long ago, before the church drew its hard lines, some early believers looked at the soul and saw something wilder, something like reincarnation? Yes, the idea that your soul doesn't just fade away or sit still, but comes back, clothed in a new body, ready for another round. It's a notion that might sound outlandish today, tucked neatly into the realm of Eastern religions or New Age musings. Yet, dig into the past, and you'll find it wasn't so foreign to the ancient world, or maybe even to the first Christians. Picture this. Thousands of years ago, the idea of rebirth wasn't some fringe theory. It was woven into the fabric of how people understood existence. Take the Egyptians, those masters of mystery and monument. They didn't see death as a full stop. No, it was a gateway. Their souls, they believed, could cycle back, tied to a cosmic rhythm that stretched beyond the pyramid's shadows. Across the sea, the Hindus painted a vivid picture. The soul, or Atman, traveling through life after life, each one shaped by karma. Your deeds rippling forward, pulling you toward enlightenment, or back into the fray. Buddhists took it further, framing rebirth as a wheel you could escape, but only if you mastered the art of letting go. Then there were the Greeks, thinkers like Pythagoras and Plato, giants of the mind. Pythagoras didn't just talk about it, he claimed he remembered. A warrior, a poet, even a plant. He'd been them all, he said, his soul hopping across centuries. Plato? He spun tales of souls in a celestial lineup, choosing their next lives like actors picking roles. Now let's zoom in on those early Christians, living in a world buzzing with these ideas. They weren't sealed off in a bubble. The Roman Empire was a crossroads, Egypt to the south, Greece to the east, trade routes snaking through India. Thoughts flowed as freely as goods. Could some of them have heard Pythagoras' stories or nodded at Plato's musings? Could they have whispered about souls returning, not just ascending? It's not a stretch. Before the church clamped down with its official doctrines, Christianity was a patchwork of voices, some loud, some soft, all wrestling with the big questions. Reincarnation might have slipped in, a quiet thread in that early tapestry, especially among those who loved a good mystery about the soul. Think about it. These weren't primitive minds grasping at straws. They were seekers, just like us, staring at the stars and wondering what held it all together. The Egyptians built tombs for eternity. The Hindus chanted mantras for liberation. The Greeks scratched their heads and wrote it down. And the Christians? They were born into this chorus. Some scholars argue that traces of reincarnation lingered in their early writings, before the redactions, before the councils, before the idea was branded heresy and swept away. Imagine a follower of Jesus sitting by a fire in 100 AD, pondering not just a resurrection at the end of time, but a return, right here, in flesh and blood. It's a jolt to the system, isn't it? That maybe, just maybe, what we call Christian today isn't the whole story. That reincarnation could have been part of its first, untamed chapters. Stick with me, because this rabbit hole's only getting deeper. Let's take a journey back to the cradles of civilization, those ancient powerhouses that didn't just shape stone and metal, but the very way we dream about the soul. These weren't quiet corners of the world. Egypt, India, Greece. They were buzzing hubs, their ideas rippling out like waves across a restless sea. And at the heart of their spiritual pulse, the notion that life isn't a one-and-done deal. Reincarnation wasn't some fleeting whisper. It was a roar, a belief that the soul could slip out of one body and into another, carrying its story forward. Could this have brushed against early Christian thought? Let's peel back the layers and see. Start with Egypt. Picture the Nile, winding through a land of gold and shadow. The Egyptians didn't just mummify their dead for show. Those tombs were tickets to something more. They saw the soul as a traveler, not tethered to a single ride. Death? Just a pause. The Ka and Ba, pieces of the spirit, could circle back, reborn into the world they'd left behind. It wasn't random. It was order, a cosmic dance tied to the gods' grand design. Now, shift your gaze to India, where the air hums with ancient chants. The Hindus didn't flinch at reincarnation. They embraced it. The soul, they said, is eternal, hopping from life to life, like a flame passed between candles. Karma was the scorecard, every choice, every stumble, sculpting the next chapter. A farmer today, a king tomorrow, or maybe a beggar. It all depended on how you played the game. Then there's Buddhism, born from India's soil, but carving its own path. Rebirth wasn't a gift. It was a challenge. Life spun on a wheel, a cycle of suffering you could break, but only if you cracked the code of desire. The soul didn't rest. It returned over and over until it learned to let go. These weren't dusty myths. They were roadmaps, ways to make sense of a world that didn't end at the grave. Now, leap across to Greece, where the mind was king. Pythagoras strides onto the stage, a man who didn't just theorize, he remembered. He'd been a soldier in one life, a poet in another, even a plant, he claimed, his soul a traveler, with a memory longer than time. Plato, his intellectual heir, took it further. He painted a picture of souls in a starry realm, peering down at Earth, picking their next adventure, hero or fool. It was their call. These ideas didn't stay locked in their homelands. They roamed. Egypt traded with the Mediterranean. India's wisdom drifted west on Silk Roads. Greece's philosophers lectured to anyone who'd listen, and plenty did. By the time Christianity flickered to life, the ancient world was a stew of thought, simmering with questions about the soul. Early Christians weren't blank slates. They walked streets where Egyptian priests bartered, heard Greek tutors debate, maybe even caught wind of India's sages. Reincarnation wasn't a stranger. It was a neighbor, loud and familiar. Could it have crept into their minds? Some say yes. Before the church built its walls, before doctrine drowned out the chatter, a few might have wondered, what if the soul comes back? What if Jesus' followers, steeped in this vibrant mix, saw death not as an end, but a turn. It's a thrilling thought, isn't it? These ancient giants, Egypt with its tombs, India with its cycles, Greece with its dreamers, didn't just influence art or war. They shaped how we imagine eternity, and maybe, just maybe, they left a mark on Christianity's earliest heartbeat. Let's keep digging. This story's got legs. Let's step into the dusty streets of 3rd century Alexandria, where a man named Origen is about to shake things up. This isn't some obscure preacher shouting in the wilderness. Origen of Alexandria was a titan, a mind so sharp he became one of early Christianity's brightest stars. Born around 185 AD, he didn't just read scripture. He wrestled with it, teased out its secrets, and dared to ask questions that made people squirm. And here's the kicker. Origen believed the soul wasn't done after one go-around. He saw it as a traveler, hopping from life to life, each one a classroom for spiritual growth. Reincarnation, in his eyes, wasn't heresy. It was the soul's slow climb toward God. Buckle up, because this story's got twist after twist. Imagine Origen at work, hunched over scrolls in a city pulsing with ideas. Alexandria wasn't a backwater. It was a crossroads, a melting pot, where Greek philosophy, Egyptian mysticism, and Jewish tradition collided. He soaked it all in. Plato's talk of souls picking their fates? Check. The idea of a universe humming with purpose? Double check. Origen took these threads and wove them into his Christian tapestry. He argued that souls pre-existed, floating out there before bodies came along, and after death, they didn't just park in heaven or hell. No, they got back in line, reborn into new lives, facing new trials. Why? To purify, to learn, to shed their flaws until they shimmered with divine light. It was a cosmic marathon, not a sprint. This wasn't some quiet side hustle either. Origen was a rock star in his day, teaching, writing, debating. His books, like On First Principles, weren't light reading. They were bombshells. He didn't see reincarnation as a wild detour. He tied it to God's justice. If someone suffered, maybe it was a lesson from a past life. If they soared, maybe they'd earned it. It made sense of a messy world, gave purpose to pain. And people listened. Students flocked to him. Bishops quoted him. For a while, his vision of the soul's grand adventure was part of the Christian conversation. A bold, beautiful what-if that didn't flinch at the big picture. But brilliance doesn't always win the day. Fast forward to 553 AD, long after Origen's death. The church was changing, less a loose band of seekers, more a fortress of power. Emperor Justinian and Empress Theodora didn't like loose ends, and Origen's ideas, they were a tangle of threads they couldn't control. At the Second Council of Constantinople, his teachings got the axe. Reincarnation, condemned, soul journeys, heresy. His books were burned, his name smeared. The council didn't just disagree, they erased him, scrubbing every hint of his cosmic soul theory from the official playbook. What survived was a shadow, fragments whispered in secret, clues buried in old texts. It's a gut punch, isn't it? Here's a man who dared to dream bigger, to see the soul as a work in progress, not a one-shot deal. He wasn't perfect. His ideas ruffled feathers even in his lifetime, but he lit a spark. And the church? They snuffed it out, not with debate, but with decree. Why? Maybe it was too free, too messy for a system craving order. Origen's downfall wasn't just his. It was a door slamming shut on a wilder, wider Christianity. Yet, his echo lingers. Scholars still dig up his words, piecing together what was lost. Could he have been right? Was reincarnation once a Christian thread, cut loose and forgotten? Hang on. This tale's far from over. Let's teleport to 553 AD, where the air crackles with tension and the stakes couldn't be higher. The Second Council of Constantinople isn't just another meeting. It's a showdown, a seismic shift in the soul of Christianity. At the center, Emperor Justinian, a ruler with iron in his veins, and his wife Theodora, a force of ambition draped in silk. They're not here to debate theology for fun. They've got a mission: erase reincarnation from the Christian story, once and for all. This isn't some gentle nudge. It's a sledgehammer to an idea that's been simmering for centuries. Buckle up, because this is where faith meets power, and the fallout changes everything. Picture the scene. Constantinople glitters under a Byzantine sun, its domed churches casting long shadows. Inside, bishops shuffle nervously, their robes swishing as they await the emperor's word. Reincarnation's been a whisper in the church. Some early Christians toyed with it, inspired by thinkers like Origen or the philosophies swirling through the empire. But Justinian and Theodora, they're done with whispers. They see a threat. If souls keep coming back, life after life, where's the urgency? Why cling to the church for salvation if you've got endless retreats? It's a crack in their armor, a chink in the control they've worked so hard to forge. So, they call the council, not to discuss, but to dictate. The target's clear: Origen's legacy. His ideas about souls journeying through multiple lives. Too dangerous. The council brands them heresy, but this isn't just about theology. It's politics dressed up as piety. Justinian's building an empire where the church isn't just a guide, it's a leash. Theodora, once a lowly actress turned empress, knows the game. They want obedience, unity, a flock that fears eternal stakes, not one musing about second chances. Reincarnation gets the chop, not because it's unprovable, but because it's inconvenient. The bishops nod, the decree is sealed, and just like that, a centuries-old thread is snipped from Christian cloth. Texts are burned, teachings vanish. The soul's grand cycle, replaced with a stark single-lane road, one life, then judgment. But let's peel back the curtain. This wasn't a pure-hearted quest for truth. Justinian's no saint, he's a tactician. Historians whisper he twisted the council's arm, strong-arming bishops into line. Theodora's fingerprints are there too. Some say she feared reincarnation, tied her past sins to her glittering present. Together, they turned a spiritual debate into a power play. The church didn't just ban an idea, it rewrote the rules of eternity to keep people in check. Imagine the ripple effect. Believers who once pondered past lives, now taught to dread a final reckoning. Priests gained clout, promising the keys to heaven or threatening hell's flames. It's a masterstroke. Fear trumps freedom every time. What's wilder? The erasure wasn't perfect. Scraps of the old belief lingered, hidden in coded writings, tucked into forgotten corners. Some say the council didn't kill reincarnation's spirit, it just drove it underground. But on the surface, the shift was brutal. By 553's end, Christianity had a new face. One life, one shot, no do-overs. Justinian and Theodora got their way. The church became a gatekeeper, not a guide. It's a chilling pivot, isn't it? A moment where an empire's grip tightened, and a big, bold idea got crushed underfoot. Yet the question nags, was this about God's will or human control? Stick with me. This story's echoes are louder than you think. Let's crack open the Bible, not as a dusty rulebook, but as a treasure chest of riddles. What if, buried in its pages, there are whispers of something wild, like reincarnation? We've been told it's a one-life story. You're born, you live, you die. Then it's curtains until Judgment Day. But pause for a second. What if those early Christians, before the church ironed out the creases, saw hints of something more? Verses that shimmer with mystery, teasing the idea that souls might circle back. Grab a seat. This is about to get intriguing. Take Matthew 17:10-13. Jesus is chatting with his disciples, and they ask about Elijah, the prophet everyone's waiting for. He doesn't dodge. He drops a bombshell. John the Baptist, he says, is Elijah. Come back to set the stage. Not inspired by him, not channeling him, is him. Flesh and blood reborn. It's right there, bold as daylight. A soul returning, slipping into a new life to finish what it started. Early listeners might have nodded, unbothered. Reincarnation wasn't alien to them, not with Greek and Eastern ideas floating around. But later, the church sanded it down. They said it's just a metaphor, a spiritual echo, not a literal comeback. Yet the words sit there, stubborn, daring us to wonder, did Jesus mean what he said? Now flip to John 3:3-7. Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, a guy who's all questions and no answers. You must be born again, Jesus tells him. Nicodemus blinks. Born again. From his mother's womb. Jesus leans in. It's about spirit, sure, but the phrase hangs heavy. Today, we hear it as a call to faith, a heart reset. But back then, could it have sparked bigger thoughts? In a world where rebirth was a buzzword, Egyptians cycling souls, Hindus tallying karma, some early Christians might have pictured it literally. A new body, a fresh start. The church later boxed it up, made it tidy, spiritual rebirth, nothing more. Still, that phrase, born again, feels like a live wire, crackling with possibility. Think about the context. These weren't words dropped into a vacuum. Jesus spoke to people steeped in a mashup of beliefs. Jerusalem wasn't a closed shop. Trade routes brought tales from India. Philosophers echoed Plato's soul cycles. Could his followers have caught a whiff of reincarnation and run with it? Maybe they saw John as Elijah as proof, a nod to the soul's encore. Other bits tease too, like Hebrews 9:27, appointed once to die, which seems to slam the door. But even there, scholars squint. Once, per life, maybe, not forever. It's a stretch, but the ambiguity fuels the fire. The Bible's not a monolith, it's a chorus, and some voices might have sung a different tune. What's gripping here is the shift. Those early hints, Elijah's return, born-again talk, could have lit up a broader story, a soul weaving through time, not pinned to one act. But the church, post-553 AD, had other plans. They smoothed the edges, reinterpreted, redirected. Reincarnation got the boot, and these verses? Repainted to fit a one-life frame. It's a detective game now, spotting the clues they couldn't quite erase. Did Jesus plant seeds his later followers uprooted? Were these lines echoes of a lost belief, muffled by centuries of editing? It's a slow burn, this puzzle, each verse a thread, tugging us back to a Christianity that might have been. Keep listening. The pages still have secrets to spill. Let's pull back the curtain on a seismic shift, one that didn't just tweak Christianity, but rewired it from the ground up. Picture the early church, a wild, sprawling thing, brimming with ideas, debates, and souls hungry for meaning. Reincarnation might have flickered there, some believers nodding to souls returning, learning, evolving. Then comes the hammer, the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 AD. The church doesn't just nudge reincarnation aside, it torches it, buries the ashes, and builds a new story. One life, one shot. heaven or hell, no in between. Why? Control, pure and simple. This isn't just theology, it's a power grab that's still echoing today. Let's dive in. Imagine the stakes. Before 553, the soul's journey could have been a marathon. Multiple lives, each a chance to stumble, grow, and get it right. It's messy, sure, but it's freeing. You're not crushed by one bad move. You've got time. Now flip that. The church says, no more retries. You're born once, you die once, and then it's eternity. Bliss or flames. Suddenly every step's a tightrope, every sin's a cliff. It's not hard to see the shift. Fear creeps in, and with it, dependence. If this life's your only roll of the dice, who holds the keys to winning? The church does. Priests, bishops, doctrine. They become your lifeline. This wasn't an accident. Emperor Justinian and Empress Theodora didn't call that council to chat. They had a vision. An empire needs order, and a church peddling endless soul cycles? That's chaos. Reincarnation softens the edges. Why dread hell if you can try again? Why bow to authority if salvation's a long game? The one life doctrine sharpens everything. It's urgent. It's now or never. People start clinging to rituals, to confessions, to the church's every word. Strip away the soul's second chances, and you've got a flock that's scared, loyal, and locked in. Justinian didn't just want believers. He wanted subjects. Theodora didn't care about past lives. She cared about this one, her grip on power. Think about the ripple effect. Without reincarnation, guilt gets heavier. You can't shrug off a mistake and say, next time, it's final. The church steps in. We'll absolve you, guide you, save you, but only if you play by our rules. Obedience isn't just virtue, it's survival. Eternal damnation's a hell of a motivator, literally. Priests gain clout, councils gain teeth, and the Bible? It's reshaped to fit. Verses hinting at rebirth, like John the Baptist as Elijah, get a new gloss. Symbolism, not souls cycling. The shift's so smooth you'd barely notice, unless you squint at what's missing. A whole layer of possibility, shaved off to keep the machine humming. What's wild is how this stuck. Centuries later, we're still wired for the one-life tale. Born, live, die, done. It's baked into sermons, prayers, even how we judge ourselves. But strip it back, and you see the strings. A church flexing control, turning a sprawling faith into a narrow chute. It's not about truth here. It's about leverage. Reincarnation threatened that. A soul with room to roam doesn't need a gatekeeper. By axing it, the church didn't just change doctrine. It changed us, our fears, our hopes, our need for someone to lead the way. It's a slow burn, this realization. The church traded a cosmic adventure for a high-stakes gamble, and we're still playing by those rules. But the old idea's shadow lingers, doesn't it? A whisper that maybe life's bigger than one act. Keep that thought close. This story's got more to unravel. Let's fast forward to today, where something wild is stirring. Reincarnation, once buried by emperors and councils, is clawing its way back into the spotlight. This isn't just dusty monks or mystics chanting in the dark. It's scientists, therapists, even kids with stories that chill your spine. The idea that our souls might loop through lifetimes isn't dead. It's waking up, shaking off centuries of silence, and daring us to look again. Could this be the comeback of a truth Christianity once knew? Grab a front row seat, because this resurgence is rewriting what we think about life, death, and everything after. Picture a lab, sterile and quiet, where researchers lean over notes that don't add up. Kids, little ones, barely out of diapers, are spilling details they shouldn't know. A boy in Ohio recalls a soldier's life in 1942, naming battles, buddies, a death he shouldn't remember. A girl in India points to a village she's never seen, calling out family she's never met, until they find her story checks out. These aren't fairy tales. They're data points. Scientists like Dr. Ian Stevenson spent decades chasing these threads. Thousands of cases crisscrossing the globe, stacking up evidence of past life memories. It's not proof, not yet, but it's a crack in the wall, a glitch that makes you wonder, what if? Then there's regression therapy, where the past isn't just a hunch, it's a flood. People lie back, eyes closed, and voices guide them deep. Suddenly, they're not in 2025. They're in 1800s France, plowing fields, or aboard a ship sinking in 1912. They smell the smoke, feel the cold, speak names they've never heard awake. Therapists like Dr. Brian Weiss started skeptical, then watched patients heal traumas tied to lives they hadn't lived in this body. It's eerie, raw, and it's piling up. Stories too vivid to dismiss as dreams. This isn't fringe anymore. It's a wave, crashing against the one life shore we've clung to. Why now? Maybe it's timing. The church's grip isn't ironclad anymore. People question, poke, explore. Science isn't scared to tangle with the weird. Reincarnation's slipping through the cracks, not as dogma, but as a what-if that won't quit. It's a middle finger to the 553 AD blackout. Justinian's ban couldn't kill it forever. And it's not just labs and couches. Pop culture's in on it. Movies, books, podcasts, spinning tales of past lives. Even spirituality's shifting. Folks blend old faiths with new, asking, why not both? Why not a soul that grows, lifetime by lifetime, instead of betting it all on one roll? This challenges everything. If reincarnation's real, the one-life doctrine, salvation or damnation, starts to wobble. Heaven and hell don't vanish, but they're not the whole game. Maybe we're here to evolve, not just pass a test. It's a gut punch to traditional views. Less fear, more wonder. Early Christians might have nodded. Origen sure would have. But today's faithful? Some squirm, some lean in. The beauty's in the shift. It's not about picking sides. It's about stretching, seeing the soul as a river, not a pond, flowing through time, carving its own path. So, where does this leave us? On the edge of something big. Reincarnation's resurgence isn't a fad. It's a mirror, reflecting questions we've dodged too long. Science keeps digging, stories keep surfacing, and that old buried thread keeps tugging. Could it tie back to Christianity's lost roots? Maybe. But even if it doesn't, it's a call to rethink the soul's story, ours, yours, everyone's. This isn't the end, it's a beginning. Keep your eyes open. The next clue's already here. As I sit with this story, I can't help but feel a quiet awe. The idea that reincarnation might have once danced in the shadows of early Christianity. It's both unsettling and strangely comforting. I've always thought of life as a single thread, straight and finite. But now I wonder, what if it's a tapestry woven across time? Origen's vision of souls journeying through lifetimes, the ancient wisdom of Egypt and Greece, even those cryptic Bible verses, they tug at something deep. It's humbling to realize how much of what we believe might have been shaped not by truth alone, but by power, by choices made in long-forgotten councils. And yet, hearing about past life memories surfacing today, I feel a spark of hope. Like maybe the soul's story isn't so easily silenced. The takeaway here is profound. Our understanding of existence isn't fixed. It's a living thing, shaped by history, faith, and now, even science. Reincarnation's rise and fall in Christianity, teaches us that ideas can be buried, but they don't always stay down. It's a reminder to look beyond the surface, to question what's handed to us. Whether you see life as one chance or many, the real lesson is curiosity about where we've been, where we're going, and what it all means. So, here's my challenge to you. Don't just let this pass by. Dig deeper. Pick up a book on origin, scour those Bible passages, or listen to someone's past life story with an open mind. Question the beliefs you've held tight. Maybe they're ready to stretch. Talk about it with friends, strangers, anyone willing to wonder aloud. The soul's journey, whatever it looks like, deserves our attention. Let's keep asking, keep seeking, because in the end, it's the questions that keep us alive.